Brock Lesnar is a real phenomena in the world of mixed martial arts. With only 9 fights in his career, he was able to become a champion, defend the UFC heavyweight title twice, and become one of the biggest stars in mixed martial arts. And that was only after he had managed to become a World Wrestling Entertainment pro wrestling star. Many fans have questions about his career in the UFC, having left both positive and negative emotions for the masses. Quite understandable, given the splash he made in such a short career. In this video, I want to discuss with you exactly how good Brock Lesnar was and the legacy he left behind at the UFC. In 2006, after witnessing one of the MMA tournaments, K1 Heroes, which took place in Las Vegas, Brock Lesnar appeared in the ring and declared his desire to become part of this organization. His first fight took place in 2007 against Korean fighter Min-Soo Kim. As I said, Lesnar was a pro wrestling star, and many viewers had doubts about Lesnar's fighting training because he was an actor who until then fought only according to script, without participation in any real fights. But what many didn't know was that Lesnar was an NCAA Division I collegiate wrestler and a national champion. Brock immediately demonstrated his wrestling skills in the fight and drove Min-Soo Kim to the ground. Brock took up a full mount and began to throw heavy punches. Min-Soo Kim could not handle Brock's power and surrendered. It was an impressive performance that displayed his wrestling prowess, physical strength, and high speed for his size. UFC immediately recognized Lesnar's talent, signing him to a contract. Lesnar's UFC debut took place on February 2, 2008, during the UFC 81 tournament. His opponent was former UFC heavyweight champion Frank Mir. Lesnar began aggressively, landing 2 crosses that sent Frank to the canvas. Brock began to beat his prone opponent, but was halted at 13 seconds, reprimanding Lesnar for forbidden blows to the back of the head. Lesnar turned the fight to the ground and tried to finish Frank off with sheer strength, but missed the mark, allowing the opponent to apply a painful knee bar. At 1:30 of the first, Lesnar was forced to surrender. For Frank Mir, it was a huge win that ruined Brock Lesnar's debut. However, Lesnar accepted the defeat and agreed that Frank Mir was better in this fight. Brock returned to the cage 6 months later for UFC 87. His opponent was Heath Herring. Brock began with a heavy cross, sending Heath to the canvas. Lesnar was able to take the top position on the ground and skillfully used his ground and pound. In the end, Lesnar won by unanimous decision. UFC surprised many by arranging his next fight against heavyweight MMA legend Randy Couture, who was 45 at the time, was doing his second title defense, and wanted this fight against the younger and larger Lesnar. Paying tribute to Randy, he interrupted Lesnar well in boxing and skillfully used the clinch, but the challenger was stronger and larger, such that Couture simply could not defend against Brock's throws and his fight. In the second round, Brock strikes well with his elbow. Couture is shocked, but shows his character and pins Brock to the cage. In the 3rd minute of the second round, Brock counterattacks well and knocks Randy to the canvas. Brock swiftly moves to finish off Randy with his hammer fist on the ground. The ref decides to stop the fight, and Lesnar becomes the new heavyweight champion in only his 4th career fight for the company. This was a great outcome. Lesnar sold pay-per-views and was worth his weight in gold. The story continues. The UFC is hosting its 100th tournament with an amazing cast of fighters, including Brock's fight as the main event of the evening. This was Lesnar's first title defense against Frank Mir, the same Frank Mir that ruined Lesnar's UFC debut. In the first round, Brock throws Mir to the ground using his strength and speed, as well as strikes in the mount. In the second round, Mir works well in the stance and throws good punches, but Brock again manages to get the fight to the ground. Lesnar is in good position from which he strikes. He throws many accurate blows to the head, and the referee stops the fight. After the end of the fight, Lesnar began to say something to Frank, and then showed the audience, which was booing him, his middle fingers. Brock did not stop there, and in an interview with Joe Rogan, began a conflict with the UFC organization itself.
Frank Mir had a horseshoe up his ass. I told him that a year ago. I pulled that sumbitch out, and I beat him over the head with it. I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing. I'm gonna sit out with my friends and family. And hell, I might even get on top of my wife tonight. See y'all later.
After this fight, Brock defended his belt twice against Shane Carwin, but Brock was suspended due to poisoning. The poisoning resulted in terrible pain, forcing Lesnar to undergo surgery and take time to recover. During Brock's recovery, Shane Carwin defeated Frank Mir by knockout in the first round to become an interim champion and gain an opportunity to merge the title with Brock Lesnar's. At this point, Carwin was a terrifying heavyweight in the UFC with a 12-0 record, all ending ahead of schedule. What's more, in college, Carwin was a high-class fighter of the second division, and apparently, for Brock, who was returning from the operation, this fight did not appear the most favorable. Nevertheless, their fight took place at UFC 116. From the outset, Shane had an excellent series of punches and uppercuts, which forced Brock to retreat to the cage completely in defense. The champion tried several times to move the fight to the ground, but Shane defended well. After that, Shane again began to throw a series of punches that, in my opinion, and according to the current rules, would have resulted in a stoppage, since Lesnar merely defended passively. Somehow, Brock survived this round. Carwin, who had an excellent round 1, appeared exhausted in round 2, with Lesnar taking advantage. Brock moved the fight to the ground and performed an arm triangle choke, delivering the first defeat of Carwin's career. Brock was able to survive the most unpleasant situation of his career and win, while fans were very enthusiastic about his success, despite their recent animosity. Brock was able to change his reputation from wrestling actor to ultimate fighter in a fight against a real serious opponent. At UFC 121, Brock defended his belt against the main challenger, Cain Velasquez, an unbeaten foe and former NCAA wrestler. Cain also had a heavy blow which had knocked down many of his rivals. As expected, Lesnar immediately attempted to move the fight to the ground, but Velasquez was able to resist. Brock manages to knock down Cain, but this takedown caused significant trouble. Lesnar failed to hold the position. Velasquez got up and immediately moved the champion to the ground, taking a dominant position, throwing a lot of hard punches, landing accurate strikes to the head, a knee to the body, and a right cross, which sends Lesnar to the canvas, with no choice but to go into a passive defense. Velasquez became the new champion. After this defeat, Brock had to fight the number 1, Junior Dos Santos, and they became the coaches of The Ultimate Fighter for Season 13. Brock's team included Tony Ferguson, who progressed very well under Lesnar's command. Brock led Ferguson to the Ultimate Fighter finale, where he became the winner, later becoming one of the best light heavyweights in the UFC. The fight between Dos Santos and Lesnar never took place, as Brock's old injury worsened again, undergoing another surgery. Lesnar returned for a fight in December 2011 against former Strikeforce champion Alistair Overeem, who was making his UFC debut. The fight began with some reconnaissance. Alistair took aim at Brock, who unexpectedly tried to transfer his opponent to the ground. Overeem defended perfectly. Overeem began to attack Brock in the clinch, throwing his trademark knee blows, inflicting great damage to Lesnar. Overeem threw a mid-kick that knocked Brock to the canvas. A couple of blows and the referee stepped in. After the fight, Lesnar congratulated his opponent and announced to his fans that he would retire due to health problems. Despite the fact that the fighter had many haters, the UFC management and fans thanked Lesnar for a bright career. But 5 years later, in 2016, the UFC announces the return of Brock Lesnar in a fight against Mark Hunt at UFC 200. Management paid Lesnar a record $2.5 million fee, while he was granted an exemption from doping testing. The fight showcased a classic striker versus a grappling wrestler. Throughout the fight, Lesnar moved Hunt to the ground and hit him from different positions. As a result, Lesnar won by unanimous decision. Lesnar again showed well at the UFC tournament, but eventually Brock tested positive for doping. This was not a big surprise to fans. He was suspended for 1 year, fined $250,000, and the result of the fight was changed to failed. This was the last time we saw Brock Lesnar fight in MMA. The fighter was close to making his comeback in 2018 when Daniel Cormier and Brock almost got into a fight in the UFC cage. The fans quickly saw through this as mere showmanship and did not really expect his return. They perfectly understood that another return for Lesnar would mean he'd be stuffed with steroids, take the money, and be disqualified again. The only reason he was interested in the fight was that Daniel Cormier, at least once in his life, had the opportunity to earn a great retirement. However, this fight did not become a reality, and Dana White said that Lesnar was over. This is how Brock Lesnar's MMA career ended. Exactly how good was Brock Lesnar? What place did he hold in the mixed martial arts industry? During his short-lived career, Lesnar was able to achieve superior results quickly, despite his reputation as an actor who could do nothing but choreographed scenario fights. Just look at his career. Lesnar quieted the haters by defeating more experienced opponents and became one of the best heavyweights of his time. Brock perfectly combined his physical strength, speed, athleticism, but injuries plagued his career, preventing further development as a fighter. Despite a lackluster ending to his career, Brock made great contributions to martial arts. He was the first to become a superstar in 2 different industries. Second, Brock brought pay-per-view sales to a completely new level. His career was a script from Hollywood. Without fighting experience, a professional wrestler tries his hand at MMA and, despite an army of haters, achieved the highest results in a limited time. Lesnar convinced fighting fans to follow his persona, with everyone wondering whether he was the real deal or an outright fraud. Friends, that was our review of Brock Lesnar's career. If you had any thoughts about Brock's career, then please leave your comments, press the like button, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel.